Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. Today we find ourselves in Dark Souls Re-Remastered mod and in Anor Londo because I finally started like in earnest comparing directly Prepare to Die Edition versus my DSRR mod. I had done this on and off, but to actually fully do it, like, because I found a program for DSR has DSR Gadget, which you can turn on like cheats, like the enemy's not attacking you and spawning items for yourself, and super useful for modding. And I didn't realize the Prepare to Die Edition had one called DS Gadget, which makes total fucking sense. And so that's helped a little bit. But anyway, I have been kind of going back and forth. And so Anor Londo I worked on last night, which the Shadow Moor issue is still fucking annoying. I still got to look at. Yeah, you can kind of see how it kind of got worse. Partially, I think that's due to I realized a fuck up I had from like months ago where I changed all the light maps, specifically the ones that I bleached out to remove the baked lighting. I ended up coloring them like middle tone gray for some reason. I can't really remember why. Because I was trying to make Anor Londo brighter like it is in Prepare to Die Edition when I compared the two. And the shadows were so contrasty and dark. And in my version, they were not. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? It turns out I had just fucked that up and the light map was causing issues. And it was a whole thing. So this is early Anor Londo sort of reworking here. And so now you actually have really contrasty shadows, as they should be. And then the actual, I still need to, yeah, see, look how bad that looks. It's only in Anor Londo that it's this bad. It's area specific, even if you have the same shadow bank settings. It's only in Anor Londo. I think it's because of the grand scale, and it has something to do with the nexus point of the map and how far away it is, and the shadows, and the dynamic shadows just freak the fuck out. Like, they don't know what they're doing. The ultimate solution for that will be to rebake the lighting. Once I know how to do that, rebake the lighting for Anor Londo. And so then it won't be relying on the dynamic shadows, because that's what's causing this issue. Although, to be fair, in Anor Londo, they've always had Shadow Moor. That was in the super early 1.0 version of Dark Souls 1, PS3 version. I had found or someone in my Discord showed me the ROM for. It still had Shadow Moor in Anor Londo. So like, it's a known issue, but it got worse in my mod because of the dynamic shadows. But anyway, yeah, now you get really cool contrasty shadows as God intended, or Gwen intended, I suppose. And so I'm still kind of tweaking it, because I think over there that looks kind of not great. I think it's the shadow distance. It's not. Once again, it's a whole baked versus dynamic, and this engine was never meant to use dynamic this broadly, for sure. And so Anor Londo kind of buckles under the weight of that. Let's go to Firelink Shrine, because version 0.95 of the mod is out now, and it does include a change to Firelink Shrine where I was wrong and it was too dark. Ooh, that looked weird for a second. I don't know what the fuck that was. Yeah, so I was wrong, and my Firelink was too dark. I did, once I did direct comparisons to Prepare to Die Edition, I was like, oh shit, my memory is bad. And so yeah, now Firelink is brighter, but you still get the visibility of the shadows, which is great. That's what all the homies want. And you, yeah, still get an overall very contrasty appearance, but and you get the benefit of all the normal maps and all that over Prepare to Die Edition. But now it's brighter. I was wrong, and I had it just too dark, so it's like that Office scene where Michael Scott was like, and I am that big man, or it takes a big man to apologize. And I am that big man. I will be that big man. Don't clip that out. Don't clip that out. But yeah, looks awesome. Let's put on Gwen's armor. I think I've shown it off, but this was done by Trivia. she redid specifically the specular maps, but also went through the normal maps and the albedo map because they had issues with like how the normal was handled and all the good stuff that she knows about more than I do. And so she worked on the Gwyn set, and it looks tremendous. So you get this really great specularity on the metallic portions, but then on the cloth portions, you do not. And so it looks spectacular. And then yesterday I also went through Undead Burg, because Undead Burg has been the toughest area by far to get how I want it to look, which obviously is the Prepare to Die edition. It's been really just a fucking struggle, man. Oh, I think I just noticed this foliage has weird rainbow artifacts. Ooh, all right, I'll have to look into that. Interesting. What did I do to that bush? I don't know. Please don't clip any of this out. This all sounds very bad. You could clip out anything I say, I think, at this point, and probably make it sound bad. Anyway, let's go up here. I guess the other part of this video will probably be one of the big updates to 0.95 is I finally found a program that can generate height maps that for parallax occlusion mapping that DSR likes, because DSR has a specific height map that it likes, which Trivia has told me over and over is an accurate height map. So it looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint, but it's actually a really good height map versus how a lot of the programs generate height maps. So the first thing of parallax you can see is actually on this wall. This was in the game by default. So it's kind of hard because it's a narrow corridor, but you can see that there's parallax happening, and you can see kind of by the blur that's on the protruded edges. And yeah, parallax is really honestly your best way of making something seem more geometrically dense or complex when it's actually not. So yeah, first thing, when we're in Undead Burg here, you can see it's very contrasty. It has a nice balance to it, and I finally feel pretty satisfied that it looks. I'll show some comparison pictures on Twitter I posted. It's a lot easier that way. So I have a subtle parallax effect on the floor block 03 here, just a subtle kind of deepening of the crevices. And for reference, I'll show the parallax that exists here by default. Because QLOC, it's very interesting. So QLOC added support for parallax occlusion mapping, as the game did not have that originally with its Prepare to Die edition release, as far as I know. Not to say I'm not even sure if parallax was possible in DX9. Probably. DS2 Scholar of the First Sin has parallax, but it's only used on like a couple surfaces. But anyway, they added support for it. So here's a really good example of parallax. So you'll see this wall, and you'll see how the bricks protrude. Parallax occlusion mapping is actually used in Elden Ring so often. I was struck when I was replaying Elden Ring a few weeks ago, and so many surfaces have parallax on them, because honestly it's just a great way of adding geometric density or perceived geometric density without doing it. So it's more performant from a rendering standpoint, but it's also way quicker than actually having a 3D modeler go and model all of these bricks. Instead, they can just use a texture and a height map and a normal map and a specular map and all that. And certainly that's a much more effective and efficient way, especially when you're designing a massive fucking game like Elden Ring. Yeah, that's going to be super useful. But yeah, let's go to the real parallax showcase, which is this way. Because parallax, it varies on its uses. Mostly, I would say it's on like brick surfaces that have specific crevices, and like floors. Those are kind of your main things. Now, if you have textures like this that are just kind of granular looking, no, it's not nearly as useful. It's really meant for things that you can add density to it. But yeah, currently I'm really happy with how Undead Burg looks. I know I've said it like 5,000 times over this 7-8 months of development of this mod, but this one, doing a direct comparison, I've been able to fine-tune. Now that I understand the params well enough, I can go in, and there's 5,000 different little knobs that you're turning for the visuals in DS1. You can do so many things in so many different ways. Like if you want to brighten the area, there's at least 6 different ways of doing that. So it all depends on balancing the image. This was original Parallax, which is this floor. I ended up creating a new height. No, I ended up using the original height map for it. That's right. Because honestly, the original height maps that QLOC made, or the few that they used, which are really only in like Undead Burg, they ended up not doing Parallax basically anywhere else. It's kind of weird. I feel like they ran out of time. So they were like, oh man, yeah, let's do Undead Burg, you know? And that was it. Like they just, you know, the height maps never made its way to almost anywhere else. It's really strange. It's a real shame too. Okay, so let me kill these jabronis first. Although I realize they're not going to attack anyway. But anyway, this cobble floor is the perfect example of parallax. So I've added parallax occlusion mapping to it. And you can see now each rock stands out as if it's been like 3D modeled. This is the best example of parallax I've ever been able to generate, because by default it just had a normal map and the albedo map, and that was it. But now you get this spectacular, like it looks so fucking good. I'm so proud of this height map. But let me show you how I actually, how you add that. Because I think that isn't, I never saw that documented anywhere, of how you would add parallax to another surface in DSR. I've never really seen that documented, so I do want to actually show that. So if we go into our DS Map Studio, which we already have our project open, we are already in Undead Burg. I've loaded that map. And so let's say I wanted to add parallax to the floor cobble. So I'll retrace the steps of exactly what I did. So you fly here, which is exactly where my character is. You see the cobble floor, and you'll see by default it's choosing map piece 2420, which if you zoom out is actually this large distant map piece they use for when you're in, like if you're over here in Undead Burg, that's what they're using for here. But let's actually, because it's overlapping with the map piece we actually want. So what you can do in DS Map Studio is find that map piece, and then you can actually hide it. Yoink. And so now we can view the actual map piece, which is 2105B1. So basically, there's a couple different ways you can do this, but one good way is, so we know it's 2105. So if you go over to your model editor tab, you can actually then type in, you go to M1001 for Undead Burg, 2105, and then you'll see I have different ones that I've loaded in. By default, your game will not have this. I've loaded stuff in from Darkroot Garden. They have the similar numbers, but they B1 is for Undead Burg, B2 is for Firelink, B0 is technically the depths, but B0 is also Darkroot Garden. But the way that it works when it's in Darkroot Garden, it's A12 because Darkroot Garden is M12. But you can actually import that Fiverr model file. You can put that into Undead Burg. You just have to change it to A10. So that's a short explanation. Don't fucking worry about that. So basically, double click on the one you want, which is 2501 B1 A10. It will now load that Fiverr here, and you'll see it is actually pretty funny that it includes the spiral staircase itself, but not the actual tower. And it also includes like the foliage. It's kind of fucking weird what they decided was in 2105 and like this little foliage. And also, yes, that is a Demon Souls texture for the floor that I put there as a tribute to Demon Souls. But anyway, here we have our floor cobble. Click on the surface you want. You'll see it is material index number 6. And so what we do from there is we actually go to, you go into your Steam folder, and then you go to your Dark Souls Remastered folder. You go to your map folder, and then you go to the actual map you want inside of the map folder. So M10 is where they store the textures for Undead Burg, the depths, and Firelink. And then M11 has the painted world textures. So that's where all your textures are the ones without all the extra zeros and the ones. But if you want the actual model files, it's in the very specific folder that matches the map name. So M1001 is for Undead Burg. We will go in here and you'll see a bunch of Fiverr.dcx's. So we need 2105. So of course you can just search for 2105, but Windows search fucking sucks. Every once in a while, it decides it can't search for anything. It's unbelievable. But anyway, just go numerically, and you'll quickly find it. So 2105 b1a10.fiverr.dcx. We then double-click on that. There are two Fiverr editors. There's an older Fiverr editor program, and then there's this newer one that looks like this. It's the pair-based Fiverr editor, version 2.4. This is the one I use most of the time. The older one, I'll show you. Basically, we use Witchy B&D or Yabber to unpack the DCX. So we'll unpack it, and you'll see it then spits out the .fiverr file that is not a .dcx. So it's not using the DCX compression. And so the old Fiverr editor can open those. Because basically what the other one is doing, the newer Fiverr editor program is basically automatically opening the .dcx one and then unpacking it for us and then viewing the actual Fiverr. It's just a difference of how the programs work. But anyway, this is the old one, which is actually still useful for certain things. Modifying certain JSON for different surfaces is still useful in the old one, so I keep it around. But it's a nice separation where basically the .fivers are opened by the old one. And you can open it in the new program as well. There's no point. You just open up the .fiverr.dcx. I'm getting stuck in a rut here of minutia, but stick with me. So anyway, yeah, we have 2105 open. And then you'll see it does have a model viewer. I don't like the model viewer that much. It's serviceable, but I don't like it. So here's what you could do if you didn't want to do the last step in DS Map Studio where we're clicking on the surface. If you don't want to do that and you just want to skip the Fiverr editor, you can do that. So in here, you go to Materials, and it will now list all of the different surfaces. So if you want to try to figure out what that floor surface is, where the cobble is, now you'll see over here, it actually has the name of it. Sometimes it'll just say material, and then you'll have no idea what it is. And you can just click on View or Highlight, and it will highlight which one it is. Here we know M10 floor cobble. Yeah, that's the one we're looking at. And so it will highlight that. That is the surface that we want. So if I wanted to add a height map to that, the first thing is you can do some prep work here. So you click on Edit Textures, and you'll see that it has a diffuse, a specular bump map, and a light map. By default, let's see if we can find one. Yeah, so if we click to this other surface, M10 Stair, by default, a lot of them will have the G_detail bump map, where they only in a couple occasions they would use a detail bump map, which would be a different normal map that would be like applied on top of it or something. So what you can do is actually rename this to G height, and then just click somewhere else, and that will now be known as G height. I think I actually got it to work without doing that, but I do it for good form also, because I think it actually just looks clearer that it says G height. But anyway, so you change that, and you then need to actually tell it here, what is the height map it's going to be using? Well, for the floor cobble, it didn't have one. So basically we then need to go to, this is going to be a little messy, but I promise you, well, maybe it'll be worth it. I don't know. I was going to say it'll be worth it, but it might be valuable for like 0.00001% of the population. But I will document it regardless. So we go to our M10 folder, and this is actually where you could put it in any one of these folders, but we need to generate that height map. We need to make a new one. There isn't one existing. They only used a handful of height maps in the original Dark Souls Remastered, so we need to make one. And I finally found a program that can do that. So what we need to do is find the original texture, which is M10 floor cobble. So let's go to M10001, as you can you get really good at understanding where the textures will be based upon their name in the 000, 001, 02, 03, 04. And that has to do with the first textures will always be the ones with like the map name and then _00 and then 01. And then after they go through all those textures, they will then get to the ones that are M10_, the name of the texture. They also get these other ones out of the way, which are M13. They're basically other textures from other maps that they use for distant things of other maps. It's a whole thing. M100001, you'll then see After it gets done with the M1001 and it goes alphabetically for the up to wall, it will then jump to N1002. Don't worry about that. Then you jump to the M10, and then they just have the name of the texture. So I've gotten pretty good at understanding, okay, M10 floor cobble, that's probably going to be an M100001. You can just check in each one of the folders and find it. So basically, if we need floor cobble, we will scroll down, and you'll see M10 floor cobble, and then you have M10 floor cobble S, cobble N, so that's the normal map, that's the specular map. And then the add, I don't actually know what the add is. I don't think I've ever opened that. I don't know what the fuck that is. That has not been referenced, so I'll have to take a look at that sometime. Anyway, if you want to create a new texture, usually what I do, let's just create one for funsies, is you want to duplicate the albedo texture because they use the same BC1 compression. So this is just a little hack that I learned, is basically just copy the original texture into another DCX. So you just control paste and it will create a duplicate. And then you rename it. So let's just rename it H2 because I'm not going to actually use it. I've already created the floor cobble H. I just pointed at my screen as if you can fucking see that. And then what you do, so you've created this new DCX here, you unpack it, and then it should say, cool, got it, love it. And then it will throw it up here. And now you'll see your folder, M10 floor cobble underscore H2. And here is your M10 floor cobble. That is our standard diffuse texture or albedo texture. And we can open that in paint.net. And it looks cool. It's already been upscaled. It's originally 1K. I upscaled it to 2K. For your height maps, you don't really need to keep it at the same resolution. They normally had their height maps at like half resolution. But so if you had it at 1080p, I think it's fine, personally, because it's not really about the granular detail for the height map. It's between the difference of black and white and the different shades in between that, so grayscale. And anyway, in here, we then make it into a PNG. I have a little X-MadHack tools that convert to PNG. You can use whatever tool you like. You can open it in paint.net, save it as PNG. You can open it in Photoshop. You can open it in whatever you want, save it as PNG. So now we have our PNG. Now we open up the actual program that will generate the height map. So it is called Later, I don't know. It's Laigter. It's generally used for pixel art kind of stuff, but it turns out it's really good at generating normal maps, parallax maps, occlusion maps, all kinds of cool things. It took me a little bit to get used to it. So basically, yeah, this is what you get when you first start it up. You import an image. So we're going to go surf over to where our texture is, which is M10001. And then we have cobble H2. That's the folder we made. And then here's the PNG I just converted. So we open up that PNG. It's going to take a little bit to load it. Just a tad. Okay. So this is what you get by default. Well, I think with mine, because I usually generate parallax maps. But so over here, the view, you can choose that you want to view just the texture itself. And then you can actually click on normal map. It will generate a normal map based on it. Pretty cool. And then it actually will generate a specular map, which is not usable in Dark Souls Remastered. Don't worry about that. But a parallax map is what we want. So this is what it shows by default. Then you tweak the threshold, and you'll see it basically pull out the cobble, being the black stones, and then the, sort of in between grout, or whatever you would call that. So here's how it works by default. You can actually invert depending on what you need to be protruded or not. So here's how it works in Dark Souls Remastered, at least. The black represents things that you want to be protruded, to be on the higher level. And then the white things are the ground level lower form. So that's how you create that protrusion, is the white is the lowest elevation, and then the black represents the highest elevation. So that's how it tells the game engine how to make it into a parallax map, right? And so your real trick here is to make it as clear as possible between those two colors with, and you don't want to have as much of this detail, these little specks, because those will then become little raised specks, like little mountain little thingies. So you do want to try to limit that. And that's where the focus tool is pretty helpful. You can see it actually get rid of these little specks because it'll focus. And then you go back to your threshold and you add a little bit back more. And basically you tweak around with this to where you can get the most of what you want raised and then the clearest defined detail around it for the lower portion. So this is your example of what you'd want to generate. And then let's just say, oop, didn't mean that. You hit export and you can export it as parallax. It'll do _P, doesn't really fucking matter. Export it and you'll see it popped out this little height map. And then you click on it. And what we're going to want to do is save it as DDS, of course. But what we're saving it as is there's one trick. So basically you click on the existing DDS file, which is m10floorcobble.dds, but the height map version of that is going to be called m10floorcobble_h. H for height, obviously. We save that. Save it as BC1 linear. Good to go. And you'll now see m10floorcobble_h. Excellent. Go into Witchy, go into your actual text file here because you need to tell it to repack the texture that you have saved. So by default here, it'll do whatever you named the DCX file that you unpacked. So that's why it says m10floorcobble_h2. That was just for an example. It will actually say _h when you don't do h2. You just do h. So don't worry about that. The main thing you need to update with this is the actual texture itself. By default, it still was calling it m10floorcobble. So the only thing you have to do is actually just go in and add _h. There you go. That's all you got to change. So you save that. And now it should actually, here's the funny thing about the repacking. It's actually really smart. So when you repack this file, you might be worried of like, well, shit, there's this file, there's the two PNGs. It will only take what is in this text file. So it will only grab exactly what you tell it by what's highlighted here and repack it into this. So you don't even need to worry about those other files. It won't grab those. So that's kind of the cool thing. So basically then your folder that you created, you now hit Witchy BND or Yabber. I'd recommend just using Witchy because it's the new version and it's the successor to Yabber. And you repack it and it says, aha, we did it successfully. Cool. Now you scroll back down to your texture. So m10floorcobble_h2. And there it is. You now have a specific texture that you have shoved in here. But we're not done. Because now you actually have to go and this overall BHD file, so m100001 TPF BHD, is actually down here as m100001.tpf BDT and TPF BHD. BHD is the one that actually opens it, but all the textures are actually stored in the BDT. That's just how their setup works. And so what you do is you unpack the 001, and that's how you get the folder up here. I forgot to say that earlier, but that's how you get these folders. I've said it in different videos, but there's a lot to this process I'm now realizing as I'm documenting it. I've just gotten so used to doing it, but I can see some people watching this and being like, fuck my life, dude. Just for one fucking surface? Yes. Although if you do another floor cobble, because they reuse textures. So it's a lot easier when you do this once and then you go to a different surface that has that same floor cobble. You can just go and turn on the parallax for that and tell it to use that. You don't need to recreate the texture every time. So this is admittedly like a one-time thing, and then you can reuse it wherever that texture is used. So partial time savings. Anyway, click into your M10001 TPF BHD. You need to now tell it when you're repacking the overall folder, the actual TPF BHD. You need to tell it to use the new DCX file you put in there. So you open up that text file. You scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see that if you want to add a new one to it, you basically copy file and file, this little sandwich here. You then hit enter, and then just for, I don't think you need to do this, but I like to do it so it looks right. And then so you've copied that, you've made a new entry, and then you update this to 1 digit higher, so 328. And then this is where you grab the name of your texture. Now you can just type it if you want. I tend to like to go here and actually grab it. So we have M10 floor cobble H2. So let's copy that overall DCX file. Oh, come on, Notepad. Hey. What the fuck, Notepad? Okay, Notepad apparently was like, we're not going to be viewing over that. And then you copy that in. So now M10 floor cobble H2.tpf.dcx. That will now be packed in to the overall BHD folder and then usable by the game. So there you go. So now save that. That's all you got to do in there. You don't have to change anything else. Okay. Now we have officially redone that. And when you want to repack this overall texture folder, unfortunately, you cannot have DS Map Studio open. They compete for those files. So we do have to close this temporarily. And now you can repack this overall thing. And if you get an error here, you know you did something wrong. But I did not get an error. So now it shoved it into that texture file. Cool, great. Now we need to go back to, here is the object. What is happening with, has supremacy? So here we are back to our Fiverr editor that we were modifying. We are on that one specific surface, which is M10 floor cobble. By default, this is what you'll see, M, DB, and then L. So what those stand for is M, I don't know, I think that's just map. I don't really know what that means. D is for diffuse map or albedo texture, so G diffuse. And then B for bump map, so your normal map, G bump map. And then S does stand for specular. So you'll see it has a specular, but it doesn't actually directly reference it here, but it is still like used. Don't worry about it. And then L for light map. And you'll see if you just don't want it to use a light map, you can actually just delete the L. And if there's that version of the MTD, then there you go. The MTDs are how they handle like how materials work and if they use light maps. And it basically controls what is used on exactly what surface. So like you'll see this grass foliage texture uses a very specific one called M_2 foliage. And then it has diffuse, specular, bump mapping. And then it has the light map, and then it uses _edge, which is a specific version for something that is at the edge of a different texture. And then they have an alp one, which is used for when it is supposed to be slightly translucent. And there's a whole bunch of different things that go into that. But basically your default ones you'll see a lot are MDB or MD, because there's some where they don't use bump mapping at all. They don't need to use the bump mapping. Like for this one is M10 Rust. I don't even know where that texture is. Oh, I think it's here and here. Weird. Anyway, that one has a bump map and a specular map. Everything in Dark Souls Remastered has a specular and a normal. That is the difference between Prepare to Die Edition and DSR. DSR added them for everything. They just don't always use them, because I think they did it in bulk fashion, and they were like, well, we don't need to use them on everything. So anyway, what we do is then go to our surface that we created a height map for, packed it into the texture file, and you change this to MDBH, H for height. So that will tell it to use that material, that MTD setting, which then references a specific shader that will use a height map. Without that, it will not use the height map. So let's do that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And now you'll see I've already put it here. But a quick thing you can do, let's delete that. So by default, this is what you're going to be looking at. It will have your diffuse, your specular, your bump map, and your light map. And because we recently, before I did all the generating of the height map, we changed this to G height, right? So if you want to do a quick way, you can actually open up Browse and find the texture itself. I personally don't really recommend that because it will then load it as a .tiff. It's a whole thing. Basically, all you have to do is grab your bump map one or your specular, or your diffuse if you want. But basically copy that, click down here, and then paste it. And then the only thing you have to do is change it to _H. you know, easy peasy lemon squeezy. So now it will automatically find that height map in the texture files you've stored. And so then you hit save, which we will not hit save because I don't need to change any of this. Everything I did is already good. And then now you're good to go. You have done all the steps that will activate the height map on that surface. Now the game is actually a little bit goofy. There's only been a couple where it won't activate the height map, even though I've done all those steps. I think that has to do with the buffer layout or something. There's some, but most all, it's worked just fine now that I've gotten a proper height map generated for it. But those are the steps that you need to do to get parallax on one surface in one map. But obviously, if you just went through and generated a bunch of height maps for a lot of the surfaces, you could then just apply it, do the later steps. You only have to do that once. So for instance, the cobble is here, but this is actually a different surface as well down here, technically. It uses the same cobble texture, but it's a different map piece, right? And I told this surface to just use the height map as well, but I didn't have to do all those steps. I already made the height map. So you just go into the Fiverr for this section, go to the, well, actually, let's do that. Just for demonstration purposes, I think it could be useful. So I think I still have, okay, so I have a DS Map Studio open, not for my project, but for a DSR reference project. If I ever need to look at how basically DSR did something, you know, certain param settings or whatever. So I have a default one that's unmodded, just so I can look at draw groups and certain things. I also have a Prepare to Die edition one that I look at. So let's fly to that other map piece I was talking about, which is down here. Oh no, that still is 2105. Oh shit. Well, shit in my ass. Okay. 2090. Oh, okay. So 2090 being... What part of 2090? Okay. All right. Yeah, 2090. Let's open up 2090, because that's this other cobble portion. And let's see if that has a height map currently, because I think it does. Okay, so we're in our 1001 folder. Let's open up 2090 B1 specifically. Let's open that. Oh, I may not have done that. Maybe. So yeah, you'll see over here it says material 5, material 6. It doesn't have the names of the textures. That's because I edited it in Blender Soulstruct, I believe. So I think that's why I'm not getting the benefit of that. But we need, it's this section here. So you can quickly do like a viewer highlight and you can get to the surface that you actually need. Aha, there we go. So it looks like it's already set. I must have done that at some point. You'll see that it is set to do M, DBH, L, and then it is set for M10 floor cobble H, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But if you were doing that on a different Fiverr, you would just find the surface, go here, add the H, and then change this to G height, and then type in your texture name, and then you should be good to go. And then save it, load in game, and then let's see if that actually worked. Because I think it didn't. Yeah, I think that, yeah, there's a difference here. Yeah. So this is an interesting case that I've been running into where it should be using a height map, but it's not. I'm interested if I can fix this live on stream. Yeah, so this is actually a really good example of here's what the texture looks like with no height map. It still looks pretty good. Like, it has a normal map, like, it's totally fine. But then you walk over into the actual height mapped one, and you're like, oh my dear God. So let's try something real quick. My first test is usually, what if I just turn off the height map? What if I just turn it off? And then basically turn it back on. It's the classic tech thing of like, just turn it off and then turn it on again. And we'll see if that activates it, because it might. If it doesn't, I'll have to look into specifically if it's like a buffer layout thing or like flags or There's got to be some reason why it's not activating it. Now you'll actually see the texture does not line up as is because of the way that they had a separate map piece. That's the connector. So then let's turn it back on for funsies and see if that'll fucking work. If not, I think I'll try. I think I know the other thing to do. Okay, so we're turning it back on. We've hit save. The good thing when you save fivers is you don't have to repack some folder. It's just, you just save it and then it's just in that folder and the game will just grab it. So that part's nice. DS2, every time you modify a fiver, you have to repack the entire BHD that has that in it. It's fucking annoying. Yeah, it's still not doing it. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So let's try something else. So we know it's 2090. My thought is, because I've modified this one at some point. So what if I have a DSR reference folder that includes the unmodded version of the game. I think if I grab that specific fiver that doesn't have any of the changes I've made, because who knows what I fucked up, right? So let's pull in 2090B1A10. Let's pull that in, and let's rename the current one I have as .old, just so I still have it, just for funsies. Okay, so I still have it. Let's copy in the unmodified model folder. Because actually, yeah, it's way bigger. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah, it's like way larger. Why is it way larger? I don't know. I'm actually very unclear as to why it's larger. I don't know. So here we go. So now we've put the unmodified 2090B1. Now let's load in game. I don't think it should look any different because it's the same model. It just doesn't have any of my potential changes over the years, or well, months, not years yet. Okay, so now we have the default one loaded. Let's just kind of open it. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, okay, so now you'll see over here it's updated back to showing the M10 floor cobble. Oh wait, it's already set to... There's something weird going on with my game. I haven't quite figured out why this is the case, but even the unmodified fiver is doing this where it's automatically applying the height map and changing the material setting when I didn't tell it to do that. I think that's part of the problem here, is I didn't tell it to do that. I very specifically did not tell it to do that. And I think that's why it's not actually activating, because it's somehow setting that as like the fucking default. And I don't... Okay, hold on. Now I'm curious. Now I'm... See, this is just like troubleshooting here. Let's copy over it again. The completely unmodified one. Well, I might open it over there too. There's something it's telling the fiver, and I don't know why it's doing that. So what we're going to do is use the old fiver editor. We're going to unpack this thing. This is going to be the most unwatchable video of all time, just so you know. So let's open it in the old fiver editor, because I'm really curious. Why is it applying that? Yeah, that's crazy. What? No, I did not tell you to use that height map. I simply did not. And yet it's still refusing to do it. Okay. Okay, well, let me open up this one. This is in a completely unmodified project. Yeah. No. Well, okay, I don't know what's going on there. Because this is a case where, like, I think Fiverr Editor's doing some weird... Was it always... Well, hold on. Did it always have a height map? Wait, no. I would have known that. I would have known if there was a height map for the cobble that it just simply wasn't using. So anyway, all right. It's saying it's referencing a height map that, oh shit. Wait, it already had one? No. No. I don't believe it. Oh, that's, no. Different one. I remember that one. No, I disagree. That's not the original game height map. They don't make height maps that look like that. That's a height map I would have made. Well, now I'm just very confused. I don't, because this is an unmodified project. Huh. Okay, well, fuck. I don't know. I'll look into that. I'll look into that off video here. Maybe I'll just cut all that shit out. I'll probably cut all that shit out. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's how you add one height mapped surface. It's crazy, and it takes quite a while. But yeah, it's fun. So let's log back in the game. Okay, small update to the video. I said I would cut this out, and then I decided not to cut this out because I figured it out. So the reason why, I actually don't really know the reason why the Parallax was not working on this side, because they're actually two different map pieces. There's one map piece here, and then a map piece here. I also realized the player lantern is turning off here. I gotta fix that. But yeah, I got the Parallax to work by a simple trick that I actually thought of because of what I had done in the video, which is actually, I basically I duplicated the height map and just named it cobble 2 underscore H instead of underscore cobble dot or underscore H. And just by renaming it, putting it as a separate height map, and then telling this Fiverr to use it, it went, oh, yeah, okay. I mean, that's fine. Like, the seam still looks fucking stupid. I'll look into that, but that's going to be tougher to fix. But yeah, now you get proper parallax here. So let's do that let's go this way. And let's add it to where Solaire is, because that's another issue. That was the same issue where Solaire's little area has that same cobble texture, but it would not accept my height map. And now that I know how to fix it, which is kind of funny because that's how I fixed the low resolution issue on some of the hard-coded textures. There's only like 3 or 4 of them where they are hard-coded to look like dog shit in DSR, but not Prepare to Die edition. So I upscaled them in DSR, but they just still looked the default low resolution. So I had to rename a texture and tell it to use that. It's really fucking stupid. Yeah, so you can see here, it's not using the height map. Oh, so you get the fucking terrible texture seam there. Ugh. Put away my weapon. And let's see if we can get a nice before and after. Let's go down here. Yeah, let's go to Solaire. And get a nice before and after. It's going to be fucking sick. Okay. Print screen. Let's log out. Let's grab his model file for his little balcony here, which is 2050. Hell yeah, dog. So let's get 2050 B1. Oh, this is gonna I can't believe anyone's gonna watch this video. You'll learn some things about Dark Souls modding from this video though, presumably. So here you can see it's once again, I believe it's already set to use a height map for reasons beyond my understanding, but it is. It's not working. So basically it's already set to MDBH. What if we tell it to use the different one, which is M10 Floor Cobble 2. Same texture, same height map, just named something else and saved as something else in the texture file. So let's save that and then log back in the game and see if it uses that height map. If not, I might have to restore the Fiverr to an earlier version of it. We'll see. We'll see. No, it's not. Oh, fuck. So it's not using it. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's weird. Oh, man. Okay. So let's try it again. I think it might be that I modified it. So let's go get the old version of the file again. Dark Souls Remastered old. I've named the original, or my reference sort of like project is Dark Souls Remastered old. Let's go to M1001. Let's go to 2050. First, let's name this as .old in case I need mine again. Yeah, 2050.old. And then we have 2050. Okay. Oop. Okay. Well, it kind of put it in there weird. I don't know why it sent me all the way to the bottom. But anyway, okay. So now we have an unmodified 2050B1 A10. And it now has updated it to do this, which I think... Okay. So let's log in again. I haven't told it to use the different height map, but I'm just logging in with the original file to see how it looks. Does it look normal? And now it's using the height map. There is something busted. Interesting. There is something busted in my modified version of it. Interesting. I think Blender Soulstruct is doing some weird shit. So anyway, we now have the height map working. Really? Well, Dark Souls modding in a nutshell is fucking weird, man. I've now fixed a couple issues by making this video. So this is why I love making the videos, because I end up figuring shit out that I go, oh, fuck, all right, cool. So yeah, figured it out. And now you have a complete, more complete version of how to do height maps in Dark Souls Remastered. I'll see you on the next video.